I never thought I'd be the kind of man who questions everything, but here I am, 38 years old, engaged to the woman I've built my life around for the past 7 years, and I cannot sleep peacefully next to her anymore, not because I don't love her, but because I'm not sure I know who she really is anymore, and I'm not sure she knows either. Let me take you back to where this all started, because this didn't happen overnight. We've known each other for 7 years, together for 3, engaged for 1. For the majority of that time, she was my person, my anchor. When the world got heavy, she was the one who helped me carry it, and I did the same for her. That's what made what happened next so hard to process, because this wasn't a stranger who heard me. This was the woman I was going to marry. When I lost my job, things got hard. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I couldn't find work no matter how hard I tried. So I did what I had to do. I built something. I started a business. And eventually it did well. I was proud of that. I thought we'd get through that rough patch stronger. But while I was grinding and building and trying to secure our future, something was shifting at her end, and I didn't see it coming. It started subtly. She'd come home from work talking about this coworker. How positive he was. How did he not take anyone's nonsense? How refreshing it was to be around someone like that. And at first, I let it go. People talk about their coworkers. It's normal. But then her music changed. Her language changed. The little phrases she used. The way she carried herself. It all started to carry traces of him. And then her attitude toward me changed too. Slowly, quietly, like the tide going out. You don't notice until the water's already gone. Then they got paired together for a work project, and one morning, completely out of nowhere, I wake up at 5 in the morning and she's lying there in the dark texting him. Not just a quick message. Texting. I lay there in silence, watching her, and something cold settled in my chest. The moment I saw it with my own eyes though. That's the moment I can't stop replaying. I got invited to a business dinner. I finally got to meet this guy in person, and honestly, nothing special, just a guy. But over the course of that dinner, I watched them, the way they'd catch each other's eyes across the table, little glances that carried entire conversations. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself I was insecure, but then we were leaving. And I stepped out of the car to say goodbye to one of her other coworkers I'd connected with, and when I turned back around, she had moved. She wasn't in the front passenger seat where she'd been sitting. She was in the driver's seat of his car, and he was leaning in, talking to her in a low voice. I walked over and asked what they were talking about. They both ignored me, continued their conversation like I wasn't standing right there. I have never felt so invisible in my life. We took the elevator up to our rooms that night, and the tension inside me was something I'd never felt before. It wasn't just jealousy. It was humiliation. And then, as we stepped off, he punched the button for her floor, called out "Y'all have a good night," and disappeared. The next morning, as I was leaving and she was staying behind to finish the work weekend, she told me cheerfully that she and him were going to work in the lobby while waiting for the others to arrive. And my last image of her, the last thing I saw as I walked away, was her skipping down the hallway toward him, bright, light, happy, the way she used to skip toward me when I got home and later looked through her phone. I found videos she had taken that night, just of him. Other people were in the background, but the camera was focused on him. Only him, and there was a breakfast order in her phone. Food she had ordered to be ready for her when she got back to the room later that night. I sat with all of that for a long time. When I finally confronted her, she told me he was like a brother, that he stood up for her, that it felt good to have someone in her corner. And I said, "I think you know he likes you." And she tried to hide it, but I saw the smile. She turned slightly away from me and said, almost flattered, "You think he likes me?" That smile told me everything her words wouldn't. I told her I was uncomfortable with what I was witnessing, and somehow, that only seemed to make the bond stronger. Months later, Mid-conversation with me, she laughed out loud at something he said in a Zoom meeting, all waiting for it to start. Mid-sentence, she didn't even pause. She just left the conversation with me to laugh at his joke, and then acted like nothing happened. She assured me nothing was going on, said he was switching markets soon, that their work partnership was winding down, that it would all resolve itself. But I've heard enough stories, read enough real accounts from real people, to know you don't catch these things at the beginning, you catch them in the middle, or at the end. So I made the hardest decision I'd made in years. I called off the wedding. I told her I could not marry her until this was resolved. We pushed it back by a year. That year has been one of the loneliest of my life. She told her friends why the wedding was postponed. Told them the whole situation, and they told her she'd done nothing wrong, that I was insecure. And I keep coming back to one thought I can't shake. If someone calls off a wedding over something that genuinely isn't true, why would you stay? Why would you fight to marry someone who accused you of something you never did? You'd leave. Any self-respecting person would walk away from that. The fact that she's still here, still pressing for this wedding, doesn't comfort me the way she thinks it should, because staying doesn't mean innocent, it just means she wants the life we built. Even if she's not willing to protect it the way I need her to. I told her that if she wanted us to have a real future, she needed to find another job, a clear boundary, a line in the sand. She looked at me and told me flat out, she is not leaving her job, and she will continue to attend business meetings where he will be present. I haven't been invited to a single one since. Her work stories have dried up almost completely. She says she's looking for other positions, but keeps finding reasons why none of them work out. To overqualify, doesn't pay enough. And yet I find myself getting email alerts for roles that pay more than what she currently makes. With qualifications that fit her perfectly, I forward them. Nothing comes of it. Her mother's response, when I told her parents the wedding was off, was something I wasn't prepared for. She said her daughter had found someone who was as smart as her, someone she connected with, but that she had done nothing wrong. Her father sat quietly and said he understood. My own parents told me to pray, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, I realized I am the only person in this entire situation treating it with the seriousness it deserves. The friends who told her she did nothing wrong, one has a husband deployed in the military she's separated from, the other is single and openly flirts with married men. These are the voices she's chosen to validate her. These are the people helping her decide whether to take my pain seriously. The wedding is coming up again, and I'm standing at a crossroads. Never imagined I'd be standing at with this woman, because here's where I am right now. Honestly and completely, I cannot picture myself standing at that altar, not because I stopped loving her, but because I cannot marry someone who has never once looked me in the eye and been fully honest. Someone who, when given every chance to choose transparency, chose to protect something she insists means nothing. You don't fight that hard to keep something that means nothing. I know that. She knows that, and the fact that we can't say it out loud to each other, that silence, that distance, that's what keeps me awake at night, lying next to the woman I still love, in a bed that used to feel like home, staring at the ceiling and wondering how we got here, and more importantly, whether there's any honest road that leads us out.